They called it the Sussex Survivors Club. Palace staff members who'd worked for Meghan Markle would meet quietly, sharing their experiences, supporting each other through what they described as one of the most difficult periods of their professional lives. This isn't tabloid gossip or speculation. This is the testimony of dedicated royal staff members speaking to Valentine Low, one of Britain's most respected royal correspondents, and what they revealed about their time working for the Duchess of Sussex is absolutely chilling. Valentine Low didn't set out to write and expose about Meghan Markle. His book, Courtiers, The Hidden Power Behind the Crown, was meant to be a comprehensive look at the people who serve the royal family, the private secretaries, the press officers, the advisors who keep the monarchy functioning behind closed doors. These are people who dedicate their careers to public service, who work long hours for modest salaries, who take their duty to the crown seriously. But when Low started interviewing current and former palace staff, one name kept coming up. One period kept being described in terms that ranged from challenging to traumatic. One individual had left such a mark on the royal household that people were still processing it years later: Meghan Markle. Low is not a sensationalist. He's been the royal correspondent for the Times of London for years. He's covered the monarchy with fairness and balance. He's written about royal triumphs and royal failures with equal measure. When someone like Valentine Low reports that palace staff were left traumatized, you need to pay attention. The picture that emerges from his meticulous research is damning. This wasn't just a case of a new royal struggling to adapt to palace life. This wasn't cultural misunderstanding or a clash of working styles. This was, according to multiple staff members, a pattern of behavior that left experienced professionals in tears, anxiety-ridden, and in some cases, seeking therapy. Let's start with the famous 5 a.m. emails. Now, you might think that's just someone who's an early riser, someone who's keen and wants to get things done. But context matters. These weren't occasional messages. They were constant. They came at all hours. And they came with an expectation of immediate response. Palace staff describe a working environment where boundaries didn't exist, where no hour was too early or too late to make demands, where the volume of requests was simply impossible to fulfill. One staff member told Low they'd receive emails at 5 a.m. more throughout the day than texts late at night asking why things hadn't been done yet. This wasn't enthusiasm. This was, in the words of people who experienced it, bullying by attrition. The dressed-down phone calls were another recurring theme. Staff members reported being berated over the phone for minor issues, or sometimes for things that weren't their fault at all. The language used was reportedly harsh, personal, and designed to humiliate. These weren't professional critiques. These were character assassinations. One former staff member told Low, "I can't believe I'm the same person I was then. I was terrified. I would sit in my car before going into work and just dread it." Think about that for a moment. This is someone who'd worked in the royal household, who'd served other members of the royal family without issue, who was a competent professional. And they were reduced to sitting in their car, dreading going to work because of how they were being treated. That's not normal. That's not acceptable. That's workplace abuse. If you're shocked by what you're hearing, you're not alone. This is the reality that Valentine Low has exposed, and it's why Royal Daily Report exists, to bring you the truth that others won't touch. Make sure you're subscribed to our channel so you don't miss any of our investigations into what really happens behind palace walls. Hit that subscribe button now. The wedding preparations were particularly brutal, according to Low's sources. This should have been a joyful time-a-historic royal wedding, a fairy tale moment for the nation. Behind the scenes, it was described as a nightmare. Staff members recall impossible demands, constantly changing requirements, and a refusal to accept the realities of royal protocol. When they tried to explain how things worked, why certain things couldn't be done, or why protocol required certain approaches, they were reportedly met with hostility. "This is how we do things in America," was apparently a frequent response, which would be fine if she were in America, but she wasn't. She'd married into the British royal family, an institution with centuries of tradition, established protocols, and ways of doing things that existed for good reason. The problem wasn't that Meghan wanted to do things differently. Change can be good. Fresh perspectives can revitalize old institutions. The problem, according to Low's sources, was how she went about it with aggression, dismissiveness, and a complete lack of respect for people who devoted their careers to royal service. The flower girl dress-fitting incident is perhaps the most revealing. This is the incident that allegedly led to Catherine, the Princess of Wales, being reduced to tears. Now, we've heard Meghan's version that Kate made her cry, but Low's reporting suggests it was actually about how Meghan treated the staff and how she spoke to people during the preparations. Multiple witnesses describe Meghan being extremely difficult about the bridesmaid dresses, making last-minute demands, and speaking to staff in a way that shocked even seasoned royal employees who'd seen their share of difficult personalities. The actual details remain disputed, but what's not disputed is that it left a lasting impression on everyone involved, and not a positive one. Low's research also reveals the impact on specific individuals. Melissa Tubati, Meghan's personal assistant, lasted just 6 months. She'd been recruited from Robbie Williams' team, so she wasn't some delicate palace flower unfamiliar with demanding bosses. She was a seasoned professional, and she quit, reportedly in tears. Samantha Cohen, who served as Meghan's private secretary, was an experienced operator who'd worked for the Queen herself. She lasted 18 months and that was longer than anyone expected. When she left, she reportedly told friends it had been one of the most difficult periods of her professional life. Amy Pickerill, another assistant private secretary, also departed. The list goes on. The turnover in Meghan's household was unprecedented in modern royal history. Now, you might argue that people leave jobs all the time. Royal service is demanding. Maybe these people just weren't the right fit. But when Valentine Low spoke to these individuals, a clear pattern emerged. They didn't just leave because it was hard work. They left because they felt they were being mistreated. One source told Low, "I think she just hated it here, and she hated the fact that she had to do what she was told rather than what she wanted." That's the crux of it, isn't it? Meghan came into the royal family with her own vision of how things should work. And when reality didn't match that vision, when she couldn't just sweep away centuries of protocol and tradition, when staff tried to guide her or explain limitations, she didn't adapt, she attacked. The bullying allegations became public in March 2021, just before the Oprah interview aired. The Times Valentine Low's newspaper published a story reporting that Meghan faced a bullying complaint made in October 2018 by Jason Knauf, then the communications secretary to Harry and William. The complaint alleged that Meghan had driven 2 personal assistants out of the household and was undermining the confidence of a third staff member. Knauf's email reportedly stated, "I am very concerned that the Duchess was able to bully 2 PAs out of the household in the past year." For those of you who want the complete picture of what's really happening in royal circles, make sure you're subscribed to Royal Daily Report. We bring you the investigations and insights that mainstream media often glosses over. Subscribe now and join our community dedicated to royal truth. The palace announced it would investigate these allegations. Meghan's lawyers issued a strong denial, calling the claims a calculated smear campaign, and then nothing. The investigation happened, supposedly, but the results were never made public. The palace said they'd made changes to HR policies as a result, but wouldn't confirm or deny the specific allegations. That silence speaks volumes. If the investigation had cleared Meghan completely, wouldn't that have been announced? Wouldn't her lawyers have demanded that exoneration be made public? The fact that it's all been buried suggests the findings weren't flattering. Low's reporting fills in the gaps that the official investigation left. His sources paint a picture that largely corroborates Knauf's concerns. They describe a working environment that was toxic, demanding, and psychologically damaging. But here's what makes Low's work so important. He also provides context about royal service more broadly. He's interviewed staff who've worked for other royals. He's spoken to people who served the Queen, Prince Philip, Charles, William, and others. And the contrast is stark. Yes, royal service is demanding. Yes, the hours are long and the expectations high. Yes, senior royals can be difficult and exacting. But what staff experienced with Meghan was different. It wasn't just about high standards. It was about disrespect, aggression, and what multiple people characterized as bullying. One particularly telling detail from Low's book: staff members who'd worked for other royals would often stay for years, sometimes decades. They'd form genuine relationships with the families they served. They'd feel pride in their work. With Meghan, the turnover was constant and the departures were acrimonious. Low also reveals the culture clash that was at the heart of many conflicts. Meghan came from Hollywood, where assistants are often treated as disposable, where demands at all hours are normalized, where difficult behavior is often excused if you're the star. Palace staff came from a tradition of public service, where dignity and respect were paramount, where hierarchy existed but was tempered by mutual courtesy. When those two worlds collided, it was never going to be smooth. But rather than adapt to her new environment, Low's sources suggest Meghan expected everyone else to adapt to her. There's also the question of Harry's role in all this. Low's reporting suggests that Harry was aware of the staff issues, but largely backed Meghan. He reportedly told one staff member who raised concerns, "She's American. This is how she is." That's not an excuse. That's enabling. If your spouse is treating people badly, you don't shrug and blame their nationality. You address the behavior. Some sources told Low that Harry seemed to change during this period, that he became more aggressive, more defensive, more willing to burn bridges. Whether that was Meghan's influence or his own frustration is unclear, but the Harry who left Britain was noticeably different from the Harry who'd been the cheeky, popular prince. The most damning aspect of Low's reporting is the sheer consistency of the accounts. These aren't isolated complaints from one disgruntled employee. These are multiple people from different parts of Meghan's household, over an extended period, all describing similar experiences. When one person says you're difficult, maybe they're the problem. When a dozen people say you're difficult, you're the problem. Low also addresses the inevitable defense, racism and sexism. Yes, Meghan faced racist abuse. Yes, she was subjected to unfair media coverage. Yes, some criticism of her was rooted in prejudice. But Low's sources are adamant that their concerns had nothing to do with her race or gender and everything to do with her behavior. These were professionals who'd served the royal family for years, who'd worked with people from all backgrounds, who took their duties seriously. To dismiss their testimony as racism is to silence genuine victims of workplace bullying. The tragedy, as Low sees it, is that it didn't have to be this way. Meghan had an opportunity to make a real difference. She had a platform, resources, and initially, enormous goodwill. She could have been transformative whilst still respecting the institution and the people within it. Instead, she left a trail of damaged relationships, traumatized staff, and an institution that's still processing the impact of her brief tenure. Low's book doesn't gloat over this. There's sadness in his reporting, because everyone involved lost something. The staff lost their sense of safety and confidence. The royal family lost a chance at meaningful modernization. And Meghan herself lost the opportunity to be the force for good she claimed she wanted to be. Valentine Low's reporting matters because it comes from impeccable sources, because it's measured and fair, and because it confirms what many suspected but couldn't prove. Meghan Markle's time as a working royal wasn't just difficult, it was, for many who worked with her, genuinely traumatic. The Sussex Survivors Club isn't a joke or an exaggeration. It's a real group of people who needed support to recover from an experience that should never have happened, and their voices, finally heard through Low's careful journalism, deserve to be believed. This isn't about tearing down Meghan Markle. This is about accountability. This is about recognizing that positions of power and privilege come with responsibilities. And one of those responsibilities is treating people with basic human decency. By that measure, according to those who were there, Meghan Markle failed spectacularly.